Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm Rishikesh, and I'm going to be your instructor for today's session. So now, as you can see on the screen, we have this meetup page. Let me also tell you some details about this Edureka Masterclass community. It all began in 2019. Since when we have huge number of members now, around 30,000. So who are making use of these webinars to upskill themselves. In these masterclasses and webinars, we conduct live events, also various webinars on different topics ranging from blockchain, IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science to big data and PMP, those kind of topics also. And all of these nuggets of wisdom are available to you for absolutely free, for absolutely no cost. So Edureka Meetup helps everyone to get to a great extent, especially to the ones who are coming new to the IT industry. And it also helps for the laterals, working professionals who have been there in the industry for quite some time to update on new tools and strategies that they use in their companies' respective jobs. Now, if you see this, you have this button, join this group. Join this group. You can click on this button. Once you click on that, you will become the member of this meetup community and you will get timely notifications of all the different webinars that Edureka will be arranging for you guys. And also you get lifetime free access on all the recordings of all of these sessions. Okay, so let us begin. So the topic for today's webinar is getting started with instances on AWS Cloud. Before we start talking about the instances, AWS, we need to understand what cloud computing is. So cloud computing is perhaps the most flamboyant technological innovation of the 21st century. This is because it has been the fastest adoption into the mainstream than any other technology in this domain. This adoption has been fueled mainly by ever increasing number of smartphones and mobile devices that can access the internet. Now, cloud computing is not just for organization and businesses, it's also helpful for average persons like you and me as well. So it enables us to run software programs without installing them on our computers. Because whatever we are doing on the mobile phones or our computers, the applications that we run, it's all because of this cloud computing. We are just using it. Those applications are running somewhere else on cloud providers' servers. Very seamlessly, it is happening. So it enables us to develop and test programs without necessarily having servers to do so. The serverless computing and those kind of things are made possible because of the cloud computing. Cloud computing is a 21st century marvel that holds its importance in almost every field you can think of. Let it be your offices, big enterprises running these kind of things on the cloud. So all of this is possible because of this cloud computing. Now, just consider a scenario where you have to set up a new business, okay, a startup or something like that, where we are going to use IT or maybe just hosting a website of our own. Then we will have to provision for a lot of things ranging from acquiring and maintaining. Okay, so acquiring various expensive servers and all of those things. So that all of that is made very easy with the development of cloud computing. Okay, so now let's have a look at the agenda for today's discussion and then we will go ahead. So we are going to look at what AWS is. We have already spoken about cloud computing. We will talk a little bit more on that. Once we get familiarized with AWS, we will understand what is instance and then what is EC2. We will understand what are the different types of EC2 instances, what are the different instant pricing methods that we have. And then towards the end of the session, we will do a small demo on how to start a full-fledged Linux machine on AWS Cloud using the EC2 instances. If we want to start a new business, probably, then we have so many things to be taken care of, right? So how was it before we had cloud computing? In the past, even if I wanted to learn Oracle, I will have to go to the market, buy an Oracle CD, install it on my machine. Right? If I want to learn Linux, I have to go and install a Linux on my machine and then start using it. This is for my learning purposes. in the enterprises, when they want to set up any new project and they require some kind of expensive hardware, then they actually have to go out and buy the stack of servers. And then, depending on their business, they would have certain peak hours, peak days. Then at that, they will have to scale their infrastructure. And without cloud, when you're doing this, before the cloud era, when you used to do this, all of these servers, all of these hardwares, you have to provision for it yourself. You used to call it as bare metal or in-premise infrastructure. So you have to buy those servers. I mean, those of you who are working in the IT industry must be familiar of how difficult it is to procure, or how time consuming it is to procure any hardware or anything of that sort for your organization. So depending on the traffic in mind, you have to really scale by buying more servers. And these are hardwares, right? These are not just software that you will get away with them or just dump them after you're done. You have to keep them, and these servers require space. You'll be keeping them in the data center, and then you have to do monitoring, maintenance of these servers, whether they are in use or not in use. They will require certain maintenance, for which you will have to invest in the data centers, the electricity, cooling, data center staff. All of that burden is carried by people who are running that business. So that was how it used to be. Rate of onboarding is high. Correct, correct. Okay, so that's what we had before we had the cloud computing, before the cloud computing era. So what is the disadvantage of these kind of things? Servers, hardwares are very expensive and very time consuming, giving you a very less room to actually focus on your own business. If you are let's say if you're in a business of running a food chain, and you are a global food chain, and you have to maintain your IT infrastructure so that you can keep getting orders and stuff like that, and you have to spend so much of time, so much of money, so much of attention on getting things for you done and then maintaining them, then you find it very difficult to focus on both things. You are spending all of your energy on something which is not the core of your business. It is just supporting your business, right? So that is expensive. Troubleshooting problems can be tedious and may conflict with your business goals. You're not supposed to concentrate on your business. You're not supposed, but then you're not able to concentrate on your business goal. Since the traffic is varying, your servers will be idle for most of the times. Now, suppose for festival seasons, you have bought some servers, you use them, they help you manage the traffic in those days. But then after the peak hours, after the peak days in the year, those servers are idle because the traffic is not that much and it doesn't require these servers. So what has happened in this case, out of 365 days, maybe for 30 days you had those kind of traffic in your servers, for which you have to now keep these servers in your data centers sitting idle doing nothing for the other 335 days of the year. And this is not a very cost effective solution anyways, as you can understand. So cloud computing helped you, gave you a solution to get rid of this problem, and let you focus more on your business, do it better at that time. No ideas is one of the cons. No idea is one of the cons at that time. Correct. People were like, I mean, when you don't know there are good things available, you keep doing your things in the old bad ways, more old expensive ways, right? You're not. I mean, today we are doing cloud computing. Tomorrow we might have something better than that, right? And then that generation might say, oh, we were doing it this way. We used to go to this cloud vendor and doing it this way, when it can be done in much lesser time and money. So you never know. The technology is ever evolving. So as I said, the cloud computing came for our rescue in these kind of situations. Cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. Pay-as-you-go means only pay for what you use on the cloud, and place all your data and applications on the cloud servers instead of buying, owning, and maintaining physical data centers and servers. You can access technology services such as computing power, storage, and databases on as needed basis. If you need it, take it. When you don't need it, just offboard it, right? It is as simple as that. So, you have various cloud providers. We call them cloud vendors like Amazon Web Services, AWS, Google Cloud Services, GCP. Then Microsoft Azure is there. There are many other players nowadays, like Alibaba Cloud is also there. But then very prominently, and the industry leaders are these three cloud providers, that is AWS, GCP, and Azure. Out of that, AWS is the clear-cut winner because it has the coverage and presence, which is more than twice all of the popularity of all the other vendors combined. So your cloud provider will manage your servers, hence no worries about underlying infrastructure. So whatever you're using, you're just using a virtual piece of your underlying hardware, which is not sitting in your data centers. It is sitting in your cloud vendors' data centers. They are managing it, and you're just using it for your business. How flexible it is, right? So that's what how your cloud computing helps you to get rid of this situation. Now let's have a look at. Okay. AWS is established in 2008, so it is in first position. Absolutely. As you say, the first timers luck, right? Um, so whosoever starts first, he has some advantage on that. So AWS started on this front, and then rest of the people started catching up. But then it's not only timing, the kind of services and the coverage that they have, the kind of services that they have is also much better than other cloud providers. They have quite a comprehensive set of different services available. Okay, so let us talk about what is AWS. We have already seen what is cloud computing. AWS is a subsidiary, you can say, of Amazon. All of us know Amazon. We do a lot of shopping on Amazon for books and all of those things. But Amazon has one business unit which is called AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services is a secure cloud service platform offering compute power, database storage, content delivery, and other functionality to help business scale and grow. This is what the definition of AWS is. Having said that, now let's take a broader look at the what Amazon has to offer. Okay, so and understand the various domains in AWS. We can also call them as microservices, as you can see on the screen. These are just a few of the different microservices that Amazon offers. So we have the compute, migration, storage, networking, and content delivery. Then we have management tools, database tools, messaging, security, and identity compliance. So any one of you, or even me, tomorrow, if you want to set up a business which requires me to have some kind of messaging tool or some kind of a database, I do not have to provision those servers for myself. I can just go to Amazon, I can just go to AWS and then use some part of their hardware and then pay rent. So you can call it as pay as you go. When you want to stay in a city, there are two options: buy house in that city, which might be very expensive, or just rent a house in that city for some time. As long as you want to stay there, just rent it, and then you're done. You do not have to do anything. The maintenance and everything will be done by the owner of that building. Right? So that's the same analogy on which this AWS and cloud computing work. So these are the different services that we have available, some of the services that we have available on AWS. Now let's see what is an instance. When we talk about AWS, we talk about instances. An instance is a virtual server for running applications on Amazon's EC2. Okay, so we will look at what is EC2 also, but then this is a virtual server. Virtual server means the chunk of processing capacity that you have got for yourself after paying money to AWS. But this is a virtual part, a virtual piece of the actual hardware which is existing in the data centers of the Amazon. Okay. Now, Amazon is a global company. AWS is a global company, so they have their data centers in various cities. They call it as availability zones and regions. Those kind of things are there. We are not going to go in much detail on that, as the topic of today is not AWS, understanding AWS, but then we are focusing on EC2. So at the end of the session, I will tell you how to get more information in case if you're interested in knowing more about AWS. Okay, so Amazon EC2, it can also be understood as a tiny chunk of large computer, a tiny piece which has its own hard drive, network connections, OS, etc. But it is all virtual. It is sitting somewhere else in the solid state, in the physical state, and you're just making use of it virtually. Okay, so now let's get into the skin of it and understand what EC2 is. Okay, when we say instances, it's always EC2 instances. So let's have a look at what EC2 is. Amazon Elastic Cloud Compute, that is EC2, Cloud Compute, EC2, provides scalable computing capacity in the Amazon Web Services cloud. It gives you flexibility, cost effectiveness, and scalability. Using Amazon EC2 eliminates your need to invest in hardware upfront, so you can develop and deploy applications faster. So you can see these are the three main features of EC2. This is a symbol. Every service in AWS has its own symbol, unique symbol. So whenever you see this on AWS, you are talking about EC2. It provides you cost efficiency because you do not have to buy those servers. You can just rent it from AWS, and obviously buying the servers will be more expensive. And then you can scale it up down whenever you need to. It gives you so much of flexibility because you're not owning those servers. You can just offboard them anytime, and because of this, it is very flexible. This entire computing infrastructure becomes very flexible for you. Okay, so now let's have a look at the types of instances. There are different types of instances. Amazon EC2 provides a wide selection of instance types optimized to fit different use cases. Okay. Now the businesses which are going to AWS for their requirements will not run the same business, right? So some of them might require IT infrastructure for CPU intensive, memory intensive, those kind of things. So based on that, Amazon also has come up with various types of instances. So those are around you have comprising various combinations of CPU, memory, storage, and networking capacity, and give you the flexibility to choose the appropriate mix of resources for your application. Each instance type includes one or more instance sizes, allowing you to scale your resources to the requirements of the large workload. So depending on what you want, you will get there. So let's have a look at the types of instances. There are different types of instances: general purpose, compute optimized. So let's have a look at each one of this. The first one is general purpose. General purpose is your instance provides a balance of compute, memory, and networking resources and can be used for a variety of diverse workloads. So in general, right, these are like combination of various types of workloads. These instances are ideal for applications that use these resources in equal proportions, such as web servers, email response servers, and code repositories, right? So for these kind of applications, if you want to spin an EC2 instance, then you will go for a general category of EC2 instance. The next one is your compute optimized. Compute optimized instances are ideal for compute bound applications and benefit from high performance processors. Instances belonging to this family are well suited for batch processing workloads. Okay, so media transcoding, high performance web servers, high performance computing, you call it as HPC, scientific modeling, dedicated gaming servers, and the server engines on which you run your machine learning algorithms. Basically, analyzing a streaming data, some kind of data analysis whenever you're doing, it requires stronger processors. So those kind of machines are available under the compute instance category on AWS. Then the next category you have is your memory instances. The memory optimized instances are designed to deliver fast performance for workloads that process large data sets in memory. So if you have your in-memory databases, or maybe to give you an example, we might have Spark clusters. Everything in Spark is getting processed in memory. So that is your in-memory data processing engine. So if you have those kind of applications, then you would definitely like to deploy them on top of EC2 instances, which are memory optimized instances. Then we have the storage optimized. Storage optimized instances are designed for workloads that require high sequential read and write access to very large data sets on local storage. They are optimized to deliver tens of thousands of low latency random IO operations per second. In terms of AWS, you call them IOPS to the application. So large scale global application use these kind of instance types. So generally, if you are, let's say, if you are running some kind of Hadoop or MapReduce based applications on top of your EC2 instances, which require a lot of I/O to happen, then for that you will have the storage instances. The storage hardware over those is very strong, which is provided to you. And then we have the GPU instances. Now, accelerated computing instances are also known as GPU instances, use hardware accelerators or co-processors to perform functions such as floating point number calculations, graphic processing, or data pattern matching more efficiently than it is possible in softwares running on CPUs. Okay, CPUs is your normal term nowadays. When you have processing like 3D modeling and all that, you go for GPU. So you have those kind of instances also available in your AWS infrastructure. So we looked at the different types, categories of EC2 instances, but then depending on, as we say, this is a pay as you go, right? So depending on what kind of usage you have for your business from these EC2 instances, they have different pricing methods also. Now it is very important for anybody who is planning to use AWS to understand their pricing model, because if you're not sure of what you want to get from them, you might end up paying more in an attempt to pay less. So you should always be nailing down this aspect very clearly. It should all be very clear to you, like how much are you going for and how much is it going to cost you. So to help you with that, Amazon has different pricing methods. Okay, so we have your on-demand pricing method, then you have dedicated pricing method, on-spot pricing methods, and reserved pricing methods. Let's have a look at each one of these. So what is on-demand instances? For each of these, we will first understand what are these kind of instances and what is the on-demand or pricing model in each one of these categories. So AWS EC2 on-demand instances enable you to pay for computing capacity by the hour. Okay, there are no long-term commitments or upfront payments. So on-demand is if you require it today, so maybe you will use it for an hour, and then you will leave it. So you're paying only for that 1 hour. So how flexible it is. You wanted a server to run some application of yours. In absence of anything like this, you would have needed to buy it, maybe for 1 hour use it, and then keep it in your garage forever or in your data centers forever. Here you can apply for it on demand. You get it for 1 hour, use it, and throw it away. Okay, so there are no long-term commitments or upfront payments. You pay only for the specific hourly usage of the instance you have opted for, and can increase or decrease your computing capacity depending on the demand of your application. So initially you decided to have an EC2 instance maybe for 1 hour, right? And then you decided to extend that for next 10 hours. You can do that. You can always do that. Then after the next 10 hours, you found that the traffic on your website is increasing. You will provision 10 such EC2 instances to cater to that traffic. And then when you are done, you can scrap all of these. You can just stop all of these instances at once. So that is your on demand. So let's have a look at the pricing model of this. On demand instances that you pay for compute capacity by hour with no long term commitments, as you've seen. If you really want to free yourself from the cost and complexities of planning, purchasing, and maintaining hardware, you must go for AWS EC2 on demand instances. This offering transforms large fixed cost into smaller variable cost, right? So you don't have any upfront investment to be done. You can just do your thing and then let go. So next you have dedicated hosts. A dedicated host is a physical AWS EC2 server dedicated for your use. Dedicated host address your compliance requirement and reduce cost by allowing you to use your existing server bound software licenses. Dedicated means on the AWS server, they would have certain servers only dedicated for you. You know, mostly the investment banks and the businesses which require the security of their data. So they do not want to share their chunk of data, their piece of server with anybody else. So that might cost you more because you are having that server in the hardware, in the data center dedicatedly for yourself. You're not allowing anybody to, what do you call it, as use those servers on a multi-tenancy basis. You do not allow anybody to come into your borders. So obviously you'll get that kind of security, but then it will fall into the dedicated category and you will be paying more, slightly more than that. But then it will always be less than what you will pay for if you have that server in premise in your data center yourself. Okay. So that is your dedicated host. And next is on-spot instances. As you can see, on-spot means it is after giving everybody everything, whatever is left on the spot, you will use it if you want. So AWS EC2 spot instances allow you to bid on spare AWS EC2 computing capacity. Now, AWS is running hardware servers in their data centers. As per the requirements from their customers, they provide the virtualized pieces of these servers to their customers. But then it's always possible that some part of the processing capacity of their servers is remaining unused. It is not taken by any user. So in that case, they auction it, they bid for it, they place bids for it, and then you can use those. You can place actually bids for those resources and make use of those. Now, kind of uh, this kind of resources will be available to you to up to 90% less cost, because those are all left, um, uh, uh, what do you call it, as these are leftover resources that you have available on AWS infrastructure, and instead of wasting it or keeping it idle, they are just giving it for lesser price. So you make use of that, but then there's a caveat to that. Because it is on spot, the moment AWS gets a requirement for those resources at higher price, they will take it away from you and then they will give it to somebody else. So there is a trade-off. You might get something at a very low cost, but then there is no guarantee that it will remain with you because it is not on demand, it is not dedicated. It is on the spot. Whenever it is available, they will say, okay, instead of we throwing it off or wasting it idle, I will let you use it. But then once I get the customer for it at the higher price, I will take it from you any moment and give it back to them. Okay, so that's how your on spot works. Now, obviously, as you can see, it saves you a lot of cost. Up to 90% of the cost can be saved. So if you're paying, let's say, $1,000 for 1 hour for any EC2 instance, just an example, it doesn't cost that much, then you might be paying $100 for that, right? So that is your on-spot instances. Okay, so let's move on to the reserved ones. Reserved, as the name suggests, this is something reserved for you. Obviously, it is going to cost more. AWS EC2 reserved instances provide you with a significant discount up to 75% compared to on-demand instance pricing. Reserved instances also provide a capacity reservation if assigned to a specific availability zone, thereby ensuring your ability to launch instances when you need them. Now, what do you mean by reserved? Um, when you do reservation, you might have done this, in some hotels also. You get some kind of discounts there. Okay, so but then commitment is there. Okay, you are reserving. That means you whether after reserving, whether you use it or not, you have already paid for those to AWS. But then in scenarios wherein you're anticipating that a shopping mall has an infrastructure on AWS, they require 10 servers in off-peak times. Okay, and when Diwali comes, you will their server requirement might be 50 servers to run all of the business. So in that case, it's not always possible that those 50 instances will be available to them on demand when they try to demand it at that time. So what do these kind of businesses do? They keep a pool of EC2 instances available to them in the form of reserved instances. So AWS will not give that resource to anybody else. It will be reserved for that particular user. Obviously, AWS will not do that without any upfront commitment. They have to take it whether they use it or not. Later on, if something like Corona comes, this year we saw that on Diwali, all the shops and everything was not open, the business was impacted. So in that case, even though they did not anticipate, they reserved some instances, but then they did not use it because of the situation. But then now they have to pay for it. Okay. So that is your reserve. When you reserve it, it will be reserved for you. You have to do the upfront payments. But then when you do this, you will be getting a lot of discounts also. So if you're actually using it, it will be of a great use for you. But then if it is not used, then that complete upfront payment will be a wastage for you. Okay, so now let's have a quick look at the different instance types based on their functioning. So we have burstable, EBS optimized, cluster networking, and dedicated here also. So what is burstable? Burstable performance instances are designed to provide a baseline level CPU with ability to burst to a higher level when required by your workload. So they have certain instances wherein you start with certain CPU cores, let's say 5, but then in the business hours, you might require 500. So these kind of instances will allow you to burst your processing power or other resources the way you want it. So those are burstable. You can extend their performance capacity to a certain extent. Then you have EBS optimized. The EBS stands for elastic block storage. Okay, so EBS, this is a kind of a storage you have available on your EC2 instances. So these are detachable storage units that you get. So EBS optimized is an Amazon EBS optimized instance uses an optimized configuration stack and provides additional dedicated capacity for Amazon EBS IO. So this is related to your IO. So if you have IO, or if you have applications which require a lot of IO and you want a robust storage, then you will go for EBS optimized. So depending on what functionality you want to run on your EC2 instances, you will go for these different types. Custom cluster compute. So Amazon or cluster networking, as you call it. So AWS has announced the availability of these kind of instances very recently. So these are new instance types specifically designed for high performance computing, that is HPC applications and other demanding applications. The new offering is designing for EC2 clients that have complex computation workloads. Lots of people these days are doing artificial intelligence, machine learning, right? So if you are a data scientist or a machine learning engineer, and if you want to test some of your models, then in the normal scenarios, you will have to provision those servers. Like machine learning servers are very high-end servers. They require a lot of compute. So for those kind of things, you will go for these kind of cluster networking, wherein each node in your cluster is very high computing, and these kind of cluster networking instances are used in artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data processing, those kind of things. And then finally, we have already seen dedicated on the previous slide that it is dedicated for you. There might be various reasons for you to go for a dedicated instance. That is, you want good resources, good bandwidth available to you as far as the network is concerned on that particular server, or you might be wanting a good security for your applications, such as investment bank applications, then you would go for a dedicated server instead of sharing it with anybody else. So I'm assuming that all of you have the AWS account available to you. It's very simple. Opening an AWS account, just go to freetier.aws.com. Those kind of sites here. You can just type on Google free-tier AWS account. It will take you to that. Just fill up the registration form. You have to provide your credit card number, and this is very safe. Okay, they will charge you ₹1 just to make sure that your credit card is valid and legitimate, and then it will be again credited back to your credit card account. You can choose to do automatic payments, but you can also, AWS will not deduct anything from your credit card without your permission if you do not choose automatic payment mode. And then for the free tier, as I said, free tier is available to you for the first year. In that, you can use services which are free tier eligible. All of the services that you see here, see, these are the different services. You have the compute, containers, storage, you have the EBS and all of those things here, S3, those kind of things are available here, correct? You have the management and governance, security, identity compliance. Then if you want to go for media, databases, different types of databases are available here, networking, machine learning, application integration, customer engagement, development tools, right? You name it, analytics, you have everything that you require, Internet of Things, those kind of categories. Obviously, when you're trying to use those services here, you will definitely have some kind of background on how to use these services. Like you'll just not go and try using it. It might send your budget for toss if you're clicking on wrong services without having the knowledge of what you're doing. Do not try here. Okay, so now as the topic of the day says EC2 instances, then you can click on here EC2. Now AWS keeps changing their interface very often. Now, sometime back, if you've seen on some of the slides on some of the windows or videos, you will see this interface looks completely different. So they keep on changing, but then the basic things remains the same. So here it will show you the instances running and all those things. So you can start by clicking on launch an instance. So if you can see, you have the options for Red Hat Enterprise, SUSE Linux. You can here you can make use. You can also say Windows, right? So it will give you the various versions. Here you see a note here. It says free tier eligible. That means this particular version, if you use for practicing maybe and practice installing a Windows machine on the AWS cloud, you can try out with these. So it will give you the Windows server. If you want, say, Red Hat, it will give you different options available. So in the marketplace, you can have Red Hat, and then there are different categories available here. Community AMIs, right? These are the different places here. So the marketplaces is a different concept altogether. People create their own softwares and then sell it in the marketplace. You can do that also, or community AMIs, which are generally freely available. People who are using AWS, they create these kind of AMIs, that is Amazon Machine Images, and then they make it available for people who are using AWS. So all these things are available for you. Obviously, when you're doing it for your company, for your business, then you will not go for a free tier, but then for learning purposes, you will always go for a free tier. So let's say now I want to go ahead and start this particular one. Okay. So as you can see, the only type is T2 micro. This is the only type which is available for free tier. Okay. So in this, you can see one CPU, 1 GB memory, EBS only, low to moderate kind of loads can be run here. So generally people who are learning AWS will be using this. But then as you go on with the expertise, if you want to use it for any purpose in your company in production environment, then you have various capacities, T2 extra large, T3 nano. As you can see, as you go on increasing the capacity, it has more number of cores, more amount of memory out here, moderate, or you can see they have huge. Okay, T4G micro, this is something new that they have made available for free tier available. Okay, so that way you can have, so you can see here as you go on increasing, it might have 36 CPU, 60 GB RAM, those kind of things are available. Of course, when you go on increasing the capacity, you're paying more for those also. Okay, so next configuration, you can select what is the configuration that you want, how many instances you want to create. You can add a storage. Let's say if I want my application to have 40 GB, 30 GB, 1 TB, or whatever storage I want, it will be created here. And then I can add tags. When you have multiple number of EC2 instances, you are dividing them by application. And if you want to search for them, then you can add tag. Right now, we don't have anything. Security group is a security mechanism. As you can see here, it allows you to specify what kind of traffic can come to your EC2 instance. You have to be very careful about this. You need to know the security, how it works on AWS cloud before playing around with this. For now, we will just keep it by default. So it will allow me to set up an SSH connection to this particular instance. Once I'm sure of everything, I can access. This means I can from anywhere in the internet, I can access this particular EC2 instance on my AWS cloud. Okay, so after making sure of everything, then let's say launch. Now they have a concept of key value pair. When you start your key value pair, you can create a new key value pair. You can name it as AWS key. Download, you have to keep it download it somewhere on your machine and keep it. Every next time when you're using it, when you're starting a new instance, you have to make use of that key value pair. Launch an instance. Your instance are now launching. Depending on the capacity that you have requested for, it might take more or less time. So as you can see here, the instance ID, this is the server actually is running now. It is still creating. So when you do that, it sends a request to AWS. They look at the different options that you have chosen for, and then they will be starting. So now see, the instance is now started. It is available. You can also name this instance. So I can say test instance, right? And just like any other server, this instance also has its own public IP. So when you're trying to access this server from using putty, you can make use of this public IP. When there are multiple servers, then there would be private IPs also associated with these. So if you click on this one, you will see the public IPs. These are the ones you can use. You can use a DNS or public IP to access the server from outside the internet. If you are accessing, if these machines are talking to each other, then they can use their private IPs as well. Private IPs are not available for accessing from the internet. So long story short, instance provides us with compute power, storage, etc. Yes. But then instance is for EC2 instances. Okay. Storage, you don't call it as an instance. Okay. Storage is some kind of a service. But then when you say instance, it is a processing instance. So you would have various types of services, the storage, networking, databases, compute. Today we talked about EC2, which is Elastic Compute Cloud, which is a compute resource. Okay, you have this button connect here. You can either make use of this button. When you log in, you have EC2 user as default user. You can go ahead and create other users also. You can say connecting to your instance. Okay, fine. Okay, so generally this comes up and connects you to the instance, but then if it is not working, then we can also make use of a putty application here. So, but then in order to use it with putty, I will first of all need to have a putty gen. Okay, you have a tool called putty gen. You need to make, because when you download, it is a pen file. If you look at this downloaded file, AWS key.pen, so it is not recognized by putty. You have to convert it to putty key. Putty key can be converted by using the putty gen application. Okay, so now let me just try and convert the pen file first of all. It will be in the downloads, right? Okay, in the downloads, but somehow it is not visible. Okay, so guys, somehow it is not available here, but then this is pretty simple. Using that .pem file, you get it uploaded here, but then this is very simple. You load it from this location wherever you have downloaded the .pem file, and don't press generate. Just say save private key here. Okay, and then once you are done, go back to your putty application. You type the public IP address that you see here. Where is that? Instance ID. This is the public IP address. Copy this one from here, paste it in the putty application. Once you have done that, you will go to connections. Then you will have the authentication. Yeah, click on this, and you have to browse to the key location where you have stored that key and save it and open it. It will open an instance. It will open a session with the Linux server that you have created in the AWS. Okay, anyways, so that's all for us right now, guys. For some reason, I'm not able to find out that PEM file. But then once you have downloaded the PEM file, convert it to the PPK file using the putty gen. Using the PPK file, you can connect to the server. You can also have this button here. You do not have to even use putty, but then I don't know, for some reason this one is not working here also. Let me see if it connects on here. Yeah. Login failed. This instance has just started up. Wait a few minutes and try again. Okay. So the easiest way of doing here is you can just connect to this connect button, and then it will allow you to connect to this particular server, or you can use the putty method that I just spoke about. Okay. So that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much. Bye bye.